Hi, this is Tony from Oasis. Today we're going to talk about, today's webinar is about commission reconciliation in Oasis. Going to make some assumptions here that you have orders already in Oasis. You may be tracking shipping information and other items in the system, but orders are already in the system and invoices have been applied to those orders. If you're not that familiar with invoices in Oasis, we're going to touch quickly on how to apply an invoice to a PO. Most manufacturers will let you know, send you invoices in one form or fashion that they have sent to your customers. They may come via email, they may only show up on a commission statement, but the same process applies. So I have a test PO here on my screen, and I'm going to show you quickly how to apply an invoice to a PO in the system. So in front of you, you should have at least an invoice number, a PO number that invoice belongs to, and then the dollar amount of the invoice at a minimum. Other information is helpful. Applying invoices line level is the best way to get the most out of the system. However, we do have a quick apply lot invoice that will at the minimum track the dollar amounts of items being shipped to the customer or invoiced to the customer. So I have a PO in front of me here, and how you apply an invoice once you found the PO is to go to File, New, and New Invoices. Now, Oasis will pop up this screen to apply an invoice or credit. It will apply either one the same way. The invoice screen will show, or the credit screen, but you apply what I'm showing you here the same way, whether it's a credit or an invoice, and Oasis will understand what you've selected. So I'm going to click Invoice first, and in this case, this PO has 4 line items that have been ordered, and you may see shipping information applied if you have applied shipping information on here, so you may see something like that. But the first thing that we're doing here is to make sure that we got the correct PO number. And then here in the header area where it says invoice, this is where you're going to enter the invoice number. So I'm going to type in a invoice number and tab to the next screen. The invoice date is just simply the date that you received the invoice, and then due date is assumes that generally it's 30 days out when you'll receive payment for the invoice, but it's not necessary for this training. Project name, if there is one, will show up, and then all of this header information across the top, we're going to point out a couple of items there as we apply the invoice. So here are all of your lines, in this case on the PO, that we can apply this invoice to. So if I'm looking at my invoice from the factory, and let's say that they have this first line for RT item, you'll notice the yellow boxes right underneath each line. Those are your invoice lines, so the kind of light brown lines, those are your invoice lines. And I look at my invoice, and they have shipped 100 of those items to your customer. So you can either type in all 100 if that's what has been shipped and invoiced, or you can simply check the box and it will automatically put the quantity from the line in that line. You'll notice all the information across the top, what's been applied. If they have just shipped this single line, then you'll only apply the invoice to this specific line. Now, up in the header at the top, under materials, material totals, that sell this invoice, right here where my cursor is at, that's the dollar amount. You will need to make sure that that dollar amount matches your invoice from the factory, or the copy of it that you got from the factory. or the statement. Either way, just make sure that those dollar amounts match what's on your invoice. If any other lines have been shipped or invoiced to your customer, then you'll apply those lines as well. Just go through and enter the quantities, and then keep watching the this invoice dollar value up here at the top, just again, so it make sure that you match that invoice amount so we can apply it. So in this case, let's say that that's all the factory shipped to your customer. So $3,105.50 worth of items. So those have been applied now to your order, and is ready for when they send you a commission payment, you can reconcile against it now. There has to be an invoice applied to a PO in the system before you can reconcile, or before you can create a payment in the system and reconcile your commission statement from the factory. So if that's all the item or dollar amount that's been applied, you can simply save and close and move on to your payment screen when you receive a commission check, so we can reconcile that. Now, in scenarios where you get an invoice from the factory, you can and you cannot figure out what lines this invoice applied to, you can estimate it, you can guess at it if you want, or in the header area in the middle of the screen where my cursor is at, there is a quick apply lot value text box there. And what that does is allow you to enter the dollar amount of the invoice. So let's say we enter $1,000, that's the dollar amount of the invoice, but you can't figure out exactly what lines to apply that to. You could simply enter the dollar amount there, and as soon as you tab off of it, it will create a lot line at the bottom of your invoice screen for that $1,000 invoice amount, and you can apply an invoice that way. So at a minimum, you are tracking the dollar amounts that you should be getting paid on at some point. So again, you can apply line level quantities if your statement shows that, or however you get that information from the factory, or you can do a quick apply lot value. That's at a minimum. So that's how you can apply an invoice. Now I'm going to remove this one right quick before we move on to applying a payment. So that's how you quickly apply invoices in the system. And again, those invoices have to be in the system before we can proceed with applying a payment. So I'm going to save and close there, and it will there. Do that again since we did the lot dollar invoice, and put this back to where it was. There we go. So it zeroed it out when I did the quick apply lot value. So there's our invoice, and we're going to save and close. All right, now how do I reconcile Invoices? So we assume that you've got a commission check and probably a statement with it that lists all the invoices that check covers. So in order to apply that, we go to the payments area in Invoices. In the payment screen, if you'll go up to the top on the toolbar, the leftmost button, big green plus button, is how you initiate a payment in Invoices for us to reconcile. So I'm going to click on that, and the system wants to know who you got the check from. Where did the check come from? So in this scenario, I'm going to say ABC Lighting. So I've set up ABC Lighting in my system to receive a check from. That's already been set up, and I get this screen and it's asking me to put in my check number. So I'm going to type in my check number, and I'm going to type in the exact amount of the check. So whatever your check amount is, that's what you type in the system. Now, date received is the date that I actually got the check. So that assumes today's date, but you actually may have got, if this is, let's say this is October the 3rd, but you actually got your September check on September 30th. So you may want to set that date back to in September. That way, if you're running reports in the system and receive a check, one check a month per manufacturer, you may want to put it in, set the date received back into the actual month that you got the check in order for your reports to show like you want it to. Now, what we're searching for are invoices that this check could cover. So we have an invoice starting and an invoice ending date. So we're going to assume that this check was for invoices that we received in the month of September. So I'm going to go back and set this to September 1 as my invoice starting date. And what it's doing here, it's going to scan the system for invoices that are not paid or not fully paid to show up here on my screen, so I can use them then to write the amount that I've got paid in here so I can reconcile my check. So I'm going to make my starting date September 1, and then I may make my ending date September 30th. Now again, these dates can vary. Again, what I'm doing is just scanning for invoices. There may be invoices that are paid on this check that are outside this time frame, either into, in this case, into October, or may have been, I may have not gotten paid my overage on a job that goes back earlier in the year. So I'll show you how to find those as well. All right, so for my ending date, I can set that to October 1 or September 30th, however you want to set that. And then once you get those dates set, you can hit the rescan button, and it's going to ask you to rescan, and it went out and found all of these invoices that are not paid or not fully paid. So there may be an invoice out there that you got partial payment on, and you're looking for more money in the check to apply to that invoice. All right, so it brought up this list of invoices that we can pay with this check. So I'm going to go through here and look at my statement, and I see invoice number 445551. And you'll notice all of these columns across here give you various information about the invoice. If you happen to need to open that invoice at any time, you can simply double click on the invoice number, and it'll actually bring that invoice up for you on the screen, and then you can close and then proceed with your payment reconciliation. So I see on my statement that according to Oasis, I was supposed to receive $191.30 commission based on the information on the invoice. And I look at my statement, and yes, that's exactly what was paid. So I can type in, either type in 191.30, or I can hit this checkbox and it'll automatically drop that dollar amount in there. Now, if you look across your columns on this payment screen, it's going to give you more information, including the amount expected on the invoice, which is invoice commission, order that it's related to. You'll see close invoice column with check boxes, close order invoice, close order checkbox column. Okay. Now, what it's done once I've entered that dollar amount that I was expecting to receive on that invoice, it looked at the invoice and it said, that's all that I'm expecting to receive. So the box checks automatically to close out the invoice. So I'm not expecting any more money on that invoice. It was paid in full. So the way Oasis looks at this is if it met or exceeded what I was supposed to get paid according to the invoice in Oasis, then it will automatically close it out. Now, you will have scenarios where you get short paid on an invoice, so you may have to decide here whether or not to close out that invoice if you're not expecting to receive any more money. So if I only received $191, I'll type 191 in there and tab off of it, then it would have not checked that box. Okay, so you may need to make a decision there about that 30 cents that I was short paid on. Do I want to track that down with the factory or not? If not, then you can manually close it. So it will automatically close the invoice, check the box, or if you put in a dollar amount that it did not meet what was expected, then it will not check that box, and you may have to manually check it if you want to close it out. If it was short by more than whatever your threshold is, then you may want to leave it unchecked and either check the box over here in the disputed column so you know to follow up on that with the factory at some point, or you can leave it open if you're expecting to get more money on it. So you have options there, but if it meets or exceeds what Oasis was expecting on the invoice, then it will automatically close that out. Now, as you go along with your commission statement and you find the invoice numbers, invoices that this check was, some of the money on this check was paid on, then you'll find them and enter that dollar amount. If you see an invoice in this list that you receive no money on this time, this check, then don't do anything with that line. Just leave it, and it will come up again next month when you reconcile your commission check. So just leave any lines alone, any invoice lines alone that are not paid on this check, and then you can deal with that next month or at another time. So I'm going down through here on my commission statement from the factory, and this invoice was paid. Looks like the full amount was paid, let's say, and there's $200 was paid on this one. Now on this invoice, $333,455, you'll notice when I paid the $200 in the paid column that it was expecting to receive. You look across here and it closed the invoice out because it met or exceeded, and it also checked the box for close order. Now what happened there, it took a look at the dollar amount that was paid on this invoice, and it said that was all of the money that I was expecting to receive on this order. So then it automatically checked that box. So it will automatically check it off. And again, you have the opportunity here if you were short paid for some reason, but it's a dollar amount that's under your threshold, then you may want to manually close out that order as well, so that it doesn't show up on any open order or orders, the aged invoice orders type reporting. It will not show up on those reports if you close those out. So again, I'm walking through here, I'm paying the dollar amounts. Now you can continue to do it this way, or in the header up here there is another way to put in your paid dollar amounts per invoice, and that's simply to type in the invoice number So I type in, especially if this invoices, if this is a check from a manufacturer that you do a lot of business with, you may have a long list of invoices that this check was paid on this month. So you can do it from the header up here. All you do here is just simply type in the invoice number and enter the amount that you were expecting to receive. And I'm going to type in $540, and notice it accepted that amount, and I hit set, and it dropped that dollar amount in that invoice that's in the list below. Now, if you type in a invoice number that does not exist in the system for this manufacturer, for instance, if I type in 55, for instance, and tab off of it, you'll get a message window that says Invoice Not Found. So it's telling you that this invoice is not in the system, but if you were truly paid on this invoice, it is one that you were paid on this month, you may want to just minimize this payment screen, go in, find that order, apply that invoice to the order, and save and close, and then come back to this commission payment screen and proceed. You don't have to refresh anything. You can just simply type in that invoice number again, tab over to the paid column. It will accept it because it's now in the system, and hit set, and it'll apply just like that one did. So again, two ways to enter the dollar amounts per invoice that you are paid on, either from the paid column or from this quick apply area in the header. You can do it either way. So keep going, working my way through this screen now, and I was paid on invoice 5676. The dollar amount matches. You just put in the exact dollar amount that you were paid on. Okay, and notice up here in the header area, as you're going along, you'll see numbers start adding up here, and what the system is doing is reconciling for you in the header area up here. So right now I have a total commission of, or invoices that have been paid, adds up to $2,368.30. Now, again, if I had entered, and I forgot to enter my check amount in here, but you can do it at any point. So let's say that my check amount was, we'll say it was $2,500. We'll make it even dollar amounts. And notice up here in the header area that it has added that up, and that's my total invoice dollar amounts that have been paid. And then notice my difference area down here is $131.70. So essentially, I am that dollar amount away from balancing my check. Okay, so I go down through here. I continue if I hadn't yet, and notice now my $33.30, I'm essentially over. So I've got to do some looking on my commission statement to get my check to balance. So I go down through here and continue. Now, if there is a invoice I mentioned earlier that is from a few months back or a ways back, and you don't see it on this screen when you did the scan, the rescan, you can actually put that invoice number here in your quick apply lot area and enter the amount paid on that invoice and hit set, and it'll actually add that invoice line to your screen. So feel free to put in any invoice numbers, and same thing, if it didn't find it, it will tell you. If it did find it, it will add it to your list here. So now again, we're going through here and applying, and let's say that all of these did apply, and that's all the invoices that were paid on for this month's commission check. But now notice my difference up here in the header is $343.85. So it's actually there. It didn't meet, according to the invoices that were paid, the check should have been $2,843.85. But I look at my commission statement and I notice there are some deductions on that commission statement that I got deducted for that I need to account for in this reconciliation before it balances, so I can post my payment and run paid reports. So I see that I had, let's say, 2 deductions on here, and so I need to account for those deductions. Now in Oasis, you'll see a second tab from this screen, your Invoices tab. There is a tab called Adjustments, and if you'll click on that, the Adjustments tab gives you a way to enter any deductions or additions to your check so that you can balance it out. So if I look on my statement from the factory, I see I had a deduction for freight, for instance. So they charged me some freight, deducted it from my check. So I can type however I want to describe that. I'm just going to describe it by deduct freight, and I'll tab over to the dollar amount that was deducted there on freight, and let's say that they deducted $43.85. So to enter a deduction, I hit my minus button first, minus 43.85, and I tab to the next column and it puts it in brackets so you know or understand that it's a deduction. And you'll notice from the header area up here it accounted for that deduction. So now I have basically a shortage of $300. So again, I look on my commission statement and they deducted, let's say, for a sample. So you can enter that again however you want to. I'm just going to call it deduct sample and go over and enter in, it was a deduction of minus 300. So I'll put a minus 300 in there, tab off, and it will show that. And notice my difference up here in the header area is now down to 0. So I have essentially balanced my check, reconciled my check, and I'm now ready to post it. Now, while you're on this screen, there is another column here called Account ID. And what the system wants to know here is basically who gets credit for it. Now, credit could be a salesperson. Some people have house account. Some people have different accounts that orders can be credited to. So the system wants to know who you want to credit this to, and you can just simply start typing in or backspace, and you'll get a list of all of your accounts that you can credit, in this case, a deduction to. So enter that in that you want to deduct that from whatever account that you want, and it will show up on statements. Also, by the way, if you got an addition to your check for whatever reason, it could be a sales bonus for reaching a goal, it could be that the factory accidentally paid you on a job that actually belonged to another territory. You can put that on here and just put a positive dollar amount so that you've accounted for it, and then likely next month they may deduct from your check that payment that they accidentally paid you. So you'll have to turn around then next month and put in a deduction to account for that deduction on next month's check. So again, account ID is who gets credit for it. So and it'll show up on the report that I'm going to show you here at the end. Now, if you also want to keep a record of any PO or invoice that this deduction or addition to your check was related to, you can actually type in maybe the PO number or invoice number that's related to, and you'll always have a record of what that was associated with. So for deductions and additions to your check, to make it reconcile, use the Adjustments tab and enter your description of it and a negative amount, a minus amount for any deductions, and positive dollar amounts for any additions to your check. And then be sure and enter an account ID so you'll know who that was related to. Again, it could be a salesperson, it could be a house account, whatever you want to associate it with. That's what the account ID is for. Now, you've paid your invoices that this check covers. You've accounted for any adjustments to that check so that your difference gets down to zero. I might say here too that we understand the world is not perfect and it's not going to always come down to a difference of zero. You're going to have invoices that maybe not sent yet, or you can't find, or there's some reason for it. So there still may be a difference listed here when you get done. If you do not want to enter any sort of adjustment for that, you can continue and go ahead and post your payment with a difference. That way you can go ahead and run paid reports, commission for account reports, and go ahead and run those type reports and pay people as it has been posted. If you figure out where that money, why it's not giving you a difference of zero, you can always come back after the fact and unpost your payment and make your adjustment, whatever you need to do, and then repost the payment. So just know that you have that option. All right, in this scenario, our difference is zero, so we've reconciled our check, and now we're ready to proceed with posting payment. Before you post it, there's always a notes tab where you can enter any notes that you'd like before moving on, and then there's also an amounts forwarded tab, but we'll discuss that in another session. It's essentially a way to forward money that you've gotten paid so that you can account for it next month. But for now, we'll just say that our difference for training here has, we've reconciled it out to zero, made our adjustments, so we're ready to post the payment. So from here, to post a payment, you'll check this box, and it's going to ask you two questions that you must be careful in answering, because obviously you're updating accounting records and getting ready to run reports for the month. By the way, you will do this commission payment process that I've done here for every manufacturer. Generally, people will do a commission payment for each factory. Usually they get paid every month from their factories, and you'll take the time to reconcile all of these checks. And once you've done that, then that gives you the ability to run some reports that I'll show you here at the end. So check the box to post the payment. Hit post if you're ready to proceed. You can always stop anywhere in this process. So I'm going to click post. And then the second question, you're updating accounting records. It gives you the ability again to stop and go and make any adjustments that you need to make. Or if you're ready to proceed, click post again. and now your payment is posted. You'll notice all of the items in the header area are all grayed out, and they don't allow you to make any more adjustments to the to anything that you've entered in here. Some people like to print this out for record's sake, so you can certainly do that. You can go to File and hit Print and group it, sort it if you want to, but otherwise just hit Print. And we call this a commission check reconciliation print. And basically everything that I've just done, including the adjustments you'll notice down here at the bottom half, and all of the payments that were made to each invoice that was paid on for the month, show up on this report. So some people like to either print this and put it in a file, or they print it out PDF and store it somewhere as well. So to print that statement, you just simply go to File and create a print of it. All right, so we posted our payment, and again, I have gone through and done this again for most groups for each manufacturer that sent me a check for the month. And again, that date received on your payment screen is what dictates any reports related to paid sales. So just make sure that that's what you want it to do. Now, from here, kind of the last report that most people run is what we call the Commission for Account report. So on your payment screen up here under Reports, you'll see some reports in here, but the Commission for Account is the one that we tend to run most. So I'll click on that, and what it's doing here is asking me what all information do you want to show on this report. Now, if I just want to run a typical report, but I want to run it for the entire company based on these paid sales, then I will put in my time frame that covers all of the payments basically for the month. So most of the time, your two dates here, from and to, will be last month to last month, or this month to this month. It's just giving the system a time frame for all of the payments that you have posted. What do you want to see? So again, I've got this one set to this month to today because I just posted a payment, but you'll go through and make all of these dates match for commissions, for resale. We didn't cover resale payments in this session. We'll do that in another session, but it is very similar. Instead of receiving a check from a manufacturer for commissions, resale is just receiving a check from a customer and reconciling to the invoices that I have sent that customer. So it's kind of the same thing, it's just who it's coming from. And then any adjustments, you'll want those adjustments to match whatever dates that you have up here. So I'm going to leave these dates alone. If I want to see it for the entire company, all of the checks basically that I've received and reconciled for this time frame for the entire company, then I can just click that box, and when I run this report, it's going to report for the entire company. And you'll see that in this second sentence up here where it says account is showing me all the checks I received from each manufacturer for the entire company. So it walks through them. Here's the ABC Lighting check that I received and all the invoices that were paid with this check for this month, and it breaks down each one of those, shows you all the information, what we received, gives you all the information that you should need. And if I had multiple checks from multiple companies reconciled this month for this report, then there's a breakdown for ABC Lighting, and then the next one would be XYZ Lighting, and then it just keeps going. So it will list every check that I received for this time frame and all the invoices that were paid on that check. Now, your next section for this report is resale margin. So it will show you any resale transactions that you receive a check from the customer on and what invoices were paid by that customer check. So it will break it down the same way as it did up here in the commissions area. And then your third area are any adjustments. And we listed the 2 deductions that we had on the ABC lighting check, a deduction for freight and a deduction for a sample, and it'll total those and show you that out here as well. Again, this is for the entire company. All right, let's close that one out and let's run that same report. And this time we're going to run it, instead of for the entire company, we're going to run it so that it groups it out by sales account. So your sales accounts that get credit on these orders, invoices get applied to them, and then you receive checks based on those invoices. You apply that, what we did earlier, you apply those checks to the invoices that check covers and the associated accounts with it. So I want to run this report now broken out by account, people that get credit for orders. So I'll leave that box unchecked this time, and I'll simply hit print, and the system will break it down now. You'll notice all the tabs across the top, and depending on how many accounts that you have that got credit for an order that was paid this month, you'll see one report for each account show here. And if you look at the second line up here at the top of the report, this account, this report basically is for demo user, or demo user sales account, you might say. So I'll look down through here, and with the ABC lighting check this month, demo user was a sales account on several of these invoices that were paid on. So I'll see those dollar amounts, and this could be that you print this and hand it off to this particular account so they know what they got credit for this month. And it'll go through here, the same thing, ABC lighting check. The next group might be XYZ lighting, all of those that this sales account was paid or got credit for on. And again, walks through the whole process, any resale items that they may have gotten credit on, and then any adjustments that were credited to this person. So remember, in our check that we reconciled a while ago, those deductions were credited to sales account demo. So they show up on their check. And then your second page, or last page for that particular sales account, you'll see still demo user up here. It covers all of that, all the information in total. So the total dollars, invoices that were given credit to demo user account were 21,000 plus, and the gross commission on all of those sales that demo user got credit for was a total of 2178.85. There was some overage on at least one of those orders that totaled $135, and there was no resale. So there was a grand total gross credit, you might say, in commissions and overage for demo user of $2313.85. Overhead is resale. We'll discuss that later. And then if there was any difference there, it says net for the difference of overhead for your resale company was credited for. So in this case, they're the same. And since we don't have any setups for what we call payday reporting, it shows all of the dollar amount in the agency column, and then any deductions will total, they're totaling in the rep column. Now, we don't have all of that set up yet, so you have the option here, since I credited those adjustments or those deductions to demo sales account, they show up here. So you have the option of either deducting that $343.85 from the total $23,1385 that was credited to demo sales account, or if they were just basically credited, the deductions credited the house account, you can leave their credit at $23,1385. So it's up to you. If you are paying commission salespeople, then you'll probably want to set up the payday type reporting, kind of behind the scenes information that actually splits this out, and the system will tell Oasis to that this sales account gets, let's say, 10% or 20% of every commission that they get credited for. So the system will then divide this commission overage amount over here in the agency column, and it will divide out what that salesperson receives and then do the deduction from here. So you'll have that total $343.85 away from $23,1385. So you'll see that net dollar amount due the sales account if you use the payday reporting. You can call us for help with setting that up if you want to set up commission sales account people in the system, so that's up to you. So anyway, you can walk through each report for each sales account, and when you get to the last page, you'll have a summary page that summarizes all of your accounts that can get credit for orders, and you'll see those totals show up on this report. So feel free to use the commissions for account report after you have entered and posted all of your payments for the month, and then you can see that report, and those folks in your company that need to look at this report and maybe give people credit that were listed as accounts to get credit for on your order. So powerful report, but you must go through and apply a payment to Invoices, and then once you've posted it, then you can run this report. There are also several other reports in the system. Any report in the system where you see paid column, that actually means posted payments in the system. So anyway, that's all we need, all we're going to cover in this section. So we walked through invoices and commission reconciliation in the system. I hope you have gotten something out of it, and any questions, let us know. Thank you.